All right, let's get cooking. Welcome to the latest edition of Chin Check Sports Radio. I'm your host, JD. I want to thank you all for taking the time out to join us. And as always, we welcome any suggestions, feedback, comments, and criticisms, which improves the quality of our program, which ultimately improves your listening experience. Once again, before we get started, we want to send you all our well wishes during the current pandemic of COVID-19. I know that our lives were ground to a halt and we're starting to get back to some level of normalcy by states easing restrictions and businesses starting to open up. But I would implore you all to let's not forget that this disease is still here. The numbers are going up, the death tolls are going up, and there is still no vaccine, nor is there a cure. So let's continue to be mindful of practicing these social distancing guidelines, continuing to wash our hands and exercise the proper hygiene, as well as wearing your mask out in public. So yes, we're getting back to some level of normalcy in our lives, but let's not be too careless and reckless and forget that this disease is still around and that scientists are experimenting and doing trial runs of cures and vaccines. We still officially don't have one. And again, we don't want to see any more lives lost with this devastating disease. So once again at Chin Check Radio, if we can serve as a distraction with everything that's going on, we are very proud of that. Our programs, they serve as really a lighthearted commentary, and we are simply just expressing our passion and our love for the things that we enjoy watching, and we're just sharing it with you all. So if our broadcasts can serve as platforms for debate, discussion, and even arguments that are playful arguments, then that's what we're proud of. Which brings us to our top 10 list of all time. And I've mentioned this before. These lists are fun, but yet hard to do because you're constantly rearranging fighters, moving one fighter up or one fighter down. Then once I make the list and I have to reassess the fighter's greatness and legacy compared to another fighter. So I've gotten into debates with people about how I ranked my fighters. People have sent me emails, text messages, phone calls. Hey, why'd you rank this fighter so high? Then when I give them my reasons for it, they have a better understanding, but they still say that this other fighter is better than this fighter, which is really the point of these lists. I don't expect you all to agree with them, and I hope you don't agree with them. It's something that is only serving to keep these guys' legacy alive, to pay homage to these great warriors. And I am proud of the fact that even hardcore fans will say, yeah, I remember watching that fight. I had to go back and watch it for myself. Or your casual fans telling me, well, damn, Chin Check, I heard about this guy before, but you made me go back and watch some of his fights, and wow, he was better than I thought he was. So those are the things that we're proud of, and we will continue to give you that quality programming for as long as we're able to do so. Now, the next fighter up on our list is the man you see on the screen, Manny Pacquiao. And Manny Pacquiao, folks, let me really put this into perspective here. He is the only person on our top 10 list who is still an active fighter right now. He is still, and of course, COVID-19 notwithstanding, right now, Manny Pacquiao is still an active fighter. And what makes it even more amazing, he's an active fighter at a high level, which means these young stars that we have in boxing, the Terrence Crawfords, the Errol Spencers, the Danny Garcias, these guys are still the Mikey Garcias. These guys are still clamoring for fights with Pacquiao. This is a man who's 41 years of age and defeating young up-and-coming fighters with relative ease. And of course, we know that he's not the Pacquiao of a decade ago, but to still be competing at a high level at the age of 41 in the year 2020 says a lot about this guy. And he's the only fighter in our top 10 list who's still an active fighter, and one of only 2 fighters in our entire boxing list that includes the top 10 as well as the honorable mention, which would be Canelo Alvarez. So these are 2 guys who are still fighting, but even more appreciated is that Pacquiao is still competing at age 41 at such a high level. Now, Manny Pacquiao, total fights 71, 62 wins, 39 wins by knockout, 7 losses, and 2 draws. Now, Manny Pacquiao began his career as a light flyweight, 108 pounds. Some people call it the junior flyweight division. Some people call it the super strawweight division. Some notable fighters who fought at that weight class. Former Puerto Rican fighter Ivan Calderon, as well as Mexican champion Michael Carbajal. In the flyweight division, 112 pounds. Some famous fighters who fought in that division. Pancho Villa, Miguel Canto, Danny Romero, Mark Too Sharp Johnson, Jorge Arce, Victor Archinian, Donito Donaire, Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. The super bantamweight division, or junior featherweight or light featherweight, 118 pounds. Some famous fighters who fought in that division: Daniel Zaragoza, Jeff Fenech, Carl Frampton, Guillermo Rigondeaux, Rafael Marquez slash Israel Vasquez. Now, go back and look at their 4 fights, classics. I'm going to just leave it at that. The featherweight division, 126 pounds. I've mentioned this before. This is the golden era that I saw. But you had Morales, you had Barrera, you had Hamed, you had a little known guy named Marquez, and then Pacquiao came out of nowhere to be the best of the bunch. Your current champions, Gary Russell Jr., Shakur Stevenson, Leo Santa Cruz. Super featherweight division, 126 to 130 pounds. Fighters who fought is the late Arturo Gatti, the late Alexis Arguello, Floyd Money Mayweather, Acelino Popo Freitas, the late Rocky Lockridge, the late Diego Corrales, wow, Azuma Nelson, and possibly the current pound-for-pound champion, Vasyl Lomachenko. Lightweight division, 130 to 135 pounds. Some famous fighters who fought at that weight class: Roberto Duran, Joel Casamayor, Sugar Shane Mosley, Carlos Ortiz, the late Pernell Sweet Pete Whitaker, and believe it or not, possibly one of the greatest fighters that you've never heard of, one Henry Armstrong, who during his era won titles at different weight classes, including lightweight, welterweight, and won all these titles at the same time. So definitely you hear Sugar Ray Robinson, you hear Muhammad Ali, you hear Roberto Duran. You usually hear those guys as your top fighters of all time. Henry Armstrong definitely deserves some consideration in that category. Definitely a truly an all-time great. But another all-time great that we're going to continue discussing is Manny Pacquiao. Now, to us hardcore boxing fans, we noticed Manny Pacquiao on June 23rd of 2001. A TKO in the 6th round versus Lelo Anolo Ledwaba for the IBF Super Bantamweight title. Now, Ledwaba was a champion who only had 1 loss at that time when he fought Pacquiao. So we're watching this card and you see this little Filipino guy smiling, parting his hair, very unorthodox, but very aggressive, hits hard, good left hand, seemingly countless energy, Freddie Roach in his corner, and this guy just brought something unique. So that kind of started raising some eyebrows. Okay, you kind of kept your eye on this guy, good fighter, a lot of aggression, very action-packed, so that kind of put, Manny Pacquiao kind of in the back of people's minds. The next fight, June of 2002, on the undercard of the Mike Tyson versus Lennox Lewis fight, who before Mayweather Pacquiao was the highest grossing fight in boxing history. So, destroys former challenger and bronze medalist in the Olympics, Jorge Julio. Now, if you watch that fight, Manny Pacquiao has a speed advantage over one Julio. His trainer, Roach, tells him, double up with the jab, because Manny Pacquiao is a southpaw, so he needs him to double up with his right jab and then throw the straight left hand behind it. Pacquiao listens, does just that, drops Julio the first time, gets back up, drops him again the second time. As Pacquiao goes on the attack, the referee stops the fight. So once again, we have now noticed, wait a minute, there's this guy who's action-packed, he has good knockout power, he's very unorthodox, but he seems to have a lot of energy, and this is on the undercard of Mike Tyson versus Lennox Lewis. So again, people that kind of put Manny Pacquiao in the back of people's minds. The fight that really brought Manny Pacquiao to the forefront amongst hardcore boxing fans is the fight November of 2003 versus the Mexican legend Marco Antonio Barrera. Now, I've mentioned my feelings on Barrera. Love watching him fight. And again, this Manny Pacquiao guy comes out of nowhere. And now let me put it in perspective for you. This is Marco Antonio Barrera, who already has his victory over Erik Morales, even though it was some controversy behind that. He split fights with Erik Morales, beats up Prince Nassim Hamed, has a victory over the late Johnny Tapia. So at this point, Barrera has clearly established himself as a best featherweight and was really the ring featherweight champion. So you have the number one pound-for-pound featherweight, one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and Pacquiao rolls through Marquez with a TKO in the 11th round. And that really started to make people notice to who Manny Pacquiao was, because once again, Barrera was the man at the time that they fought. And Pacquiao scores a third-round knockdown, and at that point, he was all over Barrera, sieging him, storming him, hitting him with left hands, moving in and out, hitting him hard, going upstairs to the head, going upstairs to the body, and that was shocking to watch. And again, that definitely made us hardcore fight fans really take notice of this guy, because now Pacquiao has introduced himself in a pound-for-pound category by just beating the top featherweight at that time. The next fight, May of 2004. And folks, if you have not watched this fight, please go back and watch this. May of 2004, he scores a draw versus Juan Manuel Marquez. And I mentioned this before on the broadcast that I did about Marquez. In that golden era of featherweights, you had Barrera, you had Morales, you had Hamed. Morales and Barrera had their business. Barrera beats Hamed. Always the odd person out was Juan Manuel Marquez. Now Marquez, he gets his chance to prove how great he is, to show that he belonged in that same category with those other great fighters, and fights Manny Pacquiao. In the first round, Marquez is dropped 3 times. 3 knockdowns. I mean, hellacious knockdowns. But what's funny, he was actually picking Pacquiao off as Pacquiao was charging in, and Marquez, being the natural counterpuncher, was picking Pacquiao down the middle. Now, what started happening was Pacquiao then unleashes a left hand that catches him right on the point of the chin. I mean, full extension on the left hand, drops Marquez. Marquez gets up, Pacquiao drops him again. He's still wobbling on his feet, drops him a third time. You thought, for all intents and purposes, that fight was going to be over in the first round. Even in the second round, Marquez really hadn't gathered himself yet. And folks, the reason why I say that you need to watch that fight, for a man to be knocked down 3 times against this storm that's named Manny Pacquiao. Anybody watching that fight can make an argument. Now, some people believe that Marquez actually won that fight despite 3 knockdowns. I look at it as that Marquez won more rounds. So you guys have to understand something. When there's 3 knockdowns in one round, the scorecards have to reflect a 10-6 round, because 1 knockdown is 10-8, 2 knockdowns are 10-7, 3 knockdowns are 10-6. So that's a 10-6 scorecard already in the first round, which means that Marquez is already 4 rounds in the hole. The beauty about boxing is a 12-round fight. So 4 rounds in the hole. So that means in the 11 rounds to go, that would mean that Marquez would have to sweep at least 8 of the next 11 rounds. Like, that's how far of a hole that he was. And I thought it was a great fight. I'm not mad about the decision. I thought Marquez won more rounds. Pacquiao still won his rounds because he was still being aggressive. But Marquez had the counter-punching style to figure Pacquiao out, and that's what he did. And that's what I found so amazing about Marquez, because that's when I became a Marquez fan that night. In the face of certain defeat, to get up off the canvas, to make adjustments against this offensive machine, to pick him off, to pick his shots. And I'm talking about, he hit Pacquiao with some clean shots, and Pacquiao, one underrated thing about Pacquiao is Pacquiao's chin. Was hitting Pacquiao with some hard shots. Pacquiao still being aggressive. So I didn't have a problem with the draw. It was a great fight, and I felt that they should do it again. Next notable fight versus the aforementioned Eric El Terrible Morales. That was March of 2005. Now, that fight was made after Morales lost 2 out of 3 fights to Barrera. So that was more of an ego thing for Morales, where, okay, I just lost to Barrera. People think I'm finished. I'm going to fight the guy who beat Barrera and to kind of prove a point, which he did. He beat Pacquiao by unanimous decision, hitting him with good right hands, using his bigger physical size to keep Pacquiao at bay with the jab, landing the right hand. So I thought he fought a virtually flawless fight, clear unanimous decisions, no questions asked, cut Pacquiao. Pacquiao's bleeding. So definitely a strong unanimous decision loss to Eric Morales. They fight a rematch in January of 2006. Now let me paint a picture for you. You still have the advantage. Morales is still the taller fighter. He's still physically the bigger fighter. He comes out, Morales wins the first round, just based on aggression, landing more punches. In his second round, the tide starts to turn. Pacquiao goes on the offensive, almost knocks Morales down. The only thing that held Morales up was holding on to the ring rope. So Pacquiao wins the second round. Now, Morales wins the third, the fourth, and the fifth round. Sweeps all these rounds. So you're thinking, okay, Morales has now regained control of the fight. He has the momentum of the fight. The same thing that's playing out in the first fight by jabbing and boxing. Every now and again, mixing it up with Pacquiao. So you're thinking, okay, this fight's going to be the same thing as the first fight. It wasn't to be, because in the sixth round is when the momentum completely changed in that fight, where Pacquiao almost scored another knockdown against Morales. Actually, Morales kind of gets caught up in the referee and the ring ropes, and he doesn't go down. And from that point, that fight, the momentum totally went to Manny Pacquiao, where Pacquiao scored 2 knockdowns in the 10th round, where for some reason in the corner that night, Morales was telling his corner to rub down his legs because his legs seemed very unsteady, but he would never quit. He would never give up, and he kept coming on the offensive. But Pacquiao, just landing the harder punches, really started to physically break Morales down. So that says a lot about this guy. Scores a TKO victory. Now, let me put this into perspective. When he knocked Morales down, that was really the first knockdown of Eric Morales' career. The first really hard knockdown. The other knockdown he had was more of a controversial knockdown. Should you call it a knockdown or not? This was the first hard knockdown that was followed up by the first knockout of Eric Morales' career. Now, understand something. Pacquiao has already knocked out Barrera, draw against Marquez, and just knocked out Eric Morales. The 3 best featherweights of that time, he's already built a Hall of Fame career by just doing that alone. Not even talking about the Ledwaba fight, the Julio fight. You've already knocked out Barrera, who was the best featherweight. Draw against Marquez, that he could have won that fight. He maybe could have lost that fight, but what stands out are the 3 knockdowns in the first round. And he just knocked out the other great featherweight. Just that alone builds a Hall of Fame career. Next fight, July of 2006, a unanimous decision over former bantamweight champion Oscar Larios. In November of 2006, a dominating devastating KO victory in the third round, once again in their third fight against Eric Morales. Folks, when Morales hit that canvas in the third round, you could see the look on his face that even he knew there's nothing I could do with this guy. And you could see the resignation on his face. He shook his head. He didn't want any more because he knew that he was in there. And again, I don't want to speculate as to what was in the man's head. Just by the fights that I've watched, just looking at it, and I'm thinking even he knew that he was in there with something special. So folks, once again, Manny Pacquiao has knocked out Marco Antonio Barrera, had a tough fight with Juan Manuel Marquez, and has 2 knockouts of Eric Morales. That alone is a Hall of Fame career. And again, we're not talking about unanimous decisions. We're talking about knockouts. We're talking about knocking out some of the best featherweights of all time, especially some of the best heavyweights of that time period. So definitely something special there with this guy. In April of 2007, has a KO victory in the 8th round versus Jorge Solis. In October of 2007, a unanimous decision over Marco Antonio Barrera. So once again, there's going to be a common theme here for the next few minutes. Already has a KO victory over Barrera. Draw against Marquez, again, scoring 3 knockdowns in the first round. 2 knockout wins versus Morales, and now another win over Marco Antonio Barrera. A serious Hall of Fame career. Now, put this into perspective. That's knocking out both guys who are number 9 on the Chin Check Radio all-time boxing list based on the fighters that we grew up watching. A decision or a draw over a fighter in the honorable mention category. So definitely an impressive career so far, with still more to do. In March of 2008, a split decision win versus Juan Manuel Marquez. Now, there's been some controversy to that fight. Some people feel that Marquez won it. The ultimate deciding factor was a knockdown in the 3rd round. Again, something with Marquez being knocked down in these fights versus Pacquiao, and that's costing him in the long run. You know, you can say Pacquiao won, you can say Marquez won, but definitely a close split decision. I tend to give a nod to Marquez, but it's not the worst decision ever in boxing history because I've seen worse than that. So again, now Pacquiao has a win versus Marquez, 2 versus Barrera, 2 versus Morales. Again, already a Hall of Fame career. In June of 2008, a TKO victory against David Diaz to win the WBC lightweight title. Very impressive. Now, in December of 2006, now this is the fight that really put Manny Pacquiao on the mainstream front to the casual boxing fan. Now, let me say this, and you hardcore fight fans listening, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. We watch these guys when they're coming up. We watch these guys when they used to fight on HBO, when they used to fight on Showtime. My folks older than me watch these guys on ABC Wild World of Sports Boxing. For those of us who remember USA Tuesday Night Fight. So we remember watching these guys coming up. So we are the hardcore fight fans because we know about these guys before they go to, quote, the mainstream. And you have your mainstream casual fans who only come around when there's a huge fight in town. So you ever notice that when there's a big money fight, and again, a Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao, every celebrity came out of the woodwork to watch that fight, which effectively priced us out of going to that fight. Because that's casual, it gets a lot of news media coverage, but on HBO, for those of us who watch these guys come up on HBO, we're the hardcore fans. Now, the reason why, and I say this, because Pacquiao fights the biggest star in boxing, at least at the time, besides the rise of a Floyd Mayweather, but really a pay-per-view attraction since 1992, the Golden Boy, Oscar de la Hoya. So you have now Manny Pacquiao moving up in weight to fight former Olympic gold medalist Oscar de la Hoya, who's been in the ring with the who's who during his career, questionable victories notwithstanding, but he's been in there with the who's who of his era. And for some reason, De La Hoya wanted to pick a fight with Pacquiao because he felt some type of way that Pacquiao has defeated the other Mexican fighters, again, Marquez, Barrera, and Morales. And as well as Oscar Larios and Hector Velasquez and Jorge Solis. So Pacquiao was earning a bit of a reputation as a Mexican assassin in the boxing ring. So De La Hoya decides to create a beef within himself to say, well, I want to see what Pacquiao is going to do to me. And again, De La Hoya is the big attraction, was the breakout mainstream star along the lines of Mike Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard, Muhammad Ali. So mainstream people who really don't watch boxing, they'll watch an Oscar De La Hoya fight. So simply put, that's the mainstream. People who don't watch boxing, when they hear the name Oscar De La Hoya, they'll tune in. Who don't watch boxing, you hear Floyd Mayweather, they will tune in. You don't watch boxing, but you hear Sugar Ray Leonard, they will tune in. Same thing with Mike Tyson, same thing with Ali. So Pacquiao now gets his shot on the world stage, and folks, this was an absolute annihilation of Oscar De La Hoya. Now, I will put this warning in there. At the time they fought, De La Hoya decided to move down in weight, because really De La Hoya at his best was at a welterweight or junior middleweight. That was really at his physical best. Moved up in weight to fight at middleweight, really didn't work out so well. So fights at 154, then is kind of weight drain. But again, the height difference between these men. We're talking Pacquiao 5'5", 5'5.5", De La Hoya 5'9", 5'10". So you figure longer jab, longer reach. And folks, it was basically Pacquiao hitting the heavy bag with feet and eyeballs and boxing gloves on, because he beat the brakes off Oscar De La Hoya from the opening bell, to the point where you couldn't even give De La Hoya a single round in that fight. And I would dare say there's been a couple of rounds you could have actually scored it a 10-8 round for Manny Pacquiao, despite not even knocking the man down. Even his trainer Freddie Rose told Pacquiao, this man is finished and go get him. And Oscar De La Hoya did not get out of his corner at the end of the 8th round, and it definitely was a one-sided beating. That fight there took Pacquiao out of just the hardcore boxing fans, and that now put him up to the mainstream media. Again, now this is with the retirement of Floyd Mayweather, because Floyd Mayweather had a shot for Oscar De La Hoya in May of 2007. That now put Floyd in the mainstream. Floyd steps away. You have De La Hoya getting older, so now boxing is looking for a new star to be the new face of boxing. And now Manny Pacquiao had just beat up the face of boxing. So now Manny Pacquiao is now the new face of boxing. He is now the mainstream star. And in a thorough thrashing, which turned out to be Oscar De La Hoya's last fight. In May of 2009, has a fight against Ricky Hatton, the former undisputed 140-pound champion, whose only loss came to Floyd Mayweather. Folks, Marvin Hagler, during his famous fight with Thomas Hearns, when Thomas Hearns had his huge entourage, and they're making noise and making threats and shouting this and shouting that, Marvin Hagler once said, when he looked up at the monitor, he told his corner, he can't bring all those people into the ring with him. It's only going to be he and I. And I say that to say, in Ricky Hatton's corner that night, in his corner you had Oscar De La Hoya, Bernard Hopkins, Shane Mosley, Juan Manuel Marquez. Why? They were all affiliated with Golden Boy Promotions. Manny Pacquiao is promoted by Bob Arum. At the time was promoted by Bob Arum. I'm not sure if he still is or not. So you have the whole Golden Boy versus Bob Arum Promotions feud. All these legendary fighters in the corner of Ricky Hatton. Hatton is trained by Floyd Mayweather Sr. That same day, ironically, Floyd Jr. announced to the world that he was coming back to boxing. And folks, Manny Pacquiao goes out there and destroys Ricky Hatton. Now, on paper, it had a potential to be a action-packed fight, because Pacquiao is an offensive fighter and Ricky Hatton is a straight-ahead, come to you and bring the action to you. He did it against Floyd Mayweather, got his ass whipped. But he tried to do the same thing with Pacquiao. They stand about equal in height, equal in weight. Everything was physically equal. So Hatton tries to bring the fight to Pacquiao. And folks, and one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, talk about the beauty of speed and foot. And Pacquiao, the first knockdown, launches a right hook launches a right hook at the same time that Pacquiao lands a right hook at the same time Hatton is landing a left hook, catches Hatton on the point of the chin, drops him. Now, as Pacquiao lands the right hook, he ducks underneath the hook of one Ricky Hatton, and Hatton falls down to the canvas. A beautiful knockdown, tremendous balance and coordination, and definitely a thing to see because you hit a guy as you're moving away and you still score a knockdown. Scores 2 knockdowns in the first round. Goes back to the corner. Floyd Mayweather Sr. is trying to tell Hatton to keep your hands up, stop charging at him. So Floyd Sr. was telling Hatton the things that he needed to know. He chose not to employ it. So in the second round, same thing. Pacquiao's bringing the heat. And folks, Pacquiao hits Ricky Hatton on the point of the chin with the left hand. You see Hatton's lights go out. The central nervous system is temporarily disabled. The man falls to the canvas. He was out before he hit the canvas. So like how they always say, when you get into a car accident, the first impact is what the car hits and the second impact is what you hit. It's the same thing in a devastating knockout. The first impact is when you hit by the punch. The second impact is when you hit the canvas. And you see Ricky Hatton hits the canvas. All arms falls out to his side. He's looking up at the damn ring lights, lip quivering, and it was one of the most brutal one-punch knockouts that you will ever see. And that was a devastating performance to just wipe out Ricky Hatton. You can compare that it took Floyd 10 rounds to beat him, while I thought Floyd was much more surgical, but he beat the holy hell out of Ricky Hatton in that fight that nobody saw coming. So a tremendous performance from Manny Pacquiao. Now, to me, this was the fight that I thought Manny Pacquiao truly wasn't great. And I will say this, and I didn't think Pacquiao was going to win this fight, but I gave Pacquiao all the credit in the world. November 2009, over another fighter in the honorable mention category, Miguel Cotto. Now, Miguel Cotto was a bigger fighter, excellent boxing skills, could be a little bit leaky on defense sometimes, but excellent boxing skills, excellent body puncher. You have a fast fighter, you take away the steam by hitting him to the body, a bigger guy. So my money was on Cotto to win that fight because I just thought that Pacquiao was too small for him. And folks, was I dead wrong. And I was shocked watching that fight at the house because I did not think that was going to happen. James, if you listen, I believe you were at that fight. And folks, he beat up Miguel Cotto. Scores knockdowns, I believe, in the third and the fourth round, and some really hard knockdowns. And folks, Miguel Cotto was beat up. I mean, there was even questions whether his corner should stop the fight. Like, that's how brutal it was. His face was grotesquely swollen, bleeding all over the place. I mean, the man was physically beat up. And when I mean physically beat up, I would even say along the same lines of the first Cotto and Antonio Margarito fight, even though I have reasons to believe that Margarito used hand wraps. But the way how Cotto's face looked in that fight, or at the end of that fight, was really the same way it looked against Manny Pacquiao. To me, Chin Check Radio, that was a fight to me that I gave Manny Pacquiao the ultimate respect, where I didn't think he was going to win that fight. Quite frankly, I didn't think he had any chance to win that fight. And the way he destroyed Miguel Cotto, that was shocking. It truly was shocking. And to me, that's his most impressive performance. Even the performances against Marquez and Morales and Barrera, even against De La Hoya, to me, that Miguel Cotto fight, because that's still a relatively young prime Miguel Cotto who will go on to win the middleweight championship. So to me, that was Pacquiao's most impressive performance, November of 2009, TKO in the 12th round against Miguel Cotto. Very, very impressed by that fight. March of 2000, defeats Joshua Clottey by unanimous decision. That was at that time when Manny Pacquiao had a great relationship with Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, and Pacquiao had a couple of fights in the Cowboys Stadium, or now known as AT&T Stadium. In November of 2010, in another fight that you maybe thought Pacquiao might have been in some trouble, against Antonio Margarito, in another fight where he beat the holy hell out of Antonio Margarito. If you go back and watch that fight, and you see some swelling on Margarito's face, folks, that was a fractured orbital bone. This little man, who is 5'5", just beat this guy who's about 5'11", 6 feet tall, and fractured his face. It doesn't get any better than that. In May of 2007, scores a unanimous decision over Sugar Shane Mosley. In November of 2011, the third fight versus Juan Manuel Marquez scores a majority decision. Again, there's some questions as to who won that fight, but another stellar performance. Again, we're talking about two guys who are evenly matched here. There's something that Marquez knew about Pacquiao. Pacquiao knew about Marquez. It's the old adage, styles make fights, and these guys just fought tough, classic fights. You have the offense of Pacquiao, you have the counterpunching of Marquez, you had the footwork of Marquez, the footwork of Pacquiao. These guys were just evenly matched, styles made fights. If you put them in the ring, they'll be both competitive. In June of 2012, in a disgusting decision, loses by split decision to Timothy Bradley. This is no knock on Timothy Bradley, but there's no way in hell that Timothy Bradley won that fight. A very awful decision in boxing history. December of 2012, now here's where things get a little bit dicey. A KO in the 6th round in the 4th fight against Juan Manuel Marquez. So now that is really the first time that Marquez has really established his dominance in that rivalry. Again, first fight, knocked down 3 times. You can make an argument that he won more rounds than Manny Pacquiao. Loses a tough decision the 2nd time, loses a tough decision the 3rd time. This time does not leave it up to the judges. Scores a knockdown in the 3rd round against Pacquiao. Marquez incorporated a lot of weightlifting. You can tell his shoulders had more muscle definition to it, more fullness in the shoulders, which when you throw the overhand right, it gives him a little bit more power. But the funny thing is, even though he did score a knockdown against Pacquiao in the 3rd round, Pacquiao was starting to slice him up really in the 4th, 5th, and even into the 6th round before the knockout. But again, I just mentioned this. These two knew each other. Marquez knew Pacquiao's style. Because again, as Marquez was getting hit and getting hurt in the 6th round, where I thought the momentum was actually in Pacquiao's favor. Folks, as Pacquiao comes charging in, Marquez just throws a right hand straight down the middle, sidesteps to his left. You see Manny Pacquiao's head snap back, and the man falls on the canvas, and there was no point in even counting. The man was motionless on the canvas, and I was concerned for the man. That was a devastating one-punch knockout, and I'm talking about along the same lines of what Pacquiao did to Ricky Hatton, along the same lines of what Sergio Martinez did to Paul the Punisher Williams. That one-punch, devastating knockout. Thomas the Hitman Hearns versus Roberto Duran. Devastating one-punch knockout. And you thought that the hype train for Manny Pacquiao was over with. So we're talking from 2003, really, where Pacquiao began his rise. You can say, from us hardcore boxing fans, from 2008 with his defeat of Oscar De La Hoya, climbing through the ranks and tearing through the ranks until December of 2012, when he's knocked out by Juan Manuel Marquez. And folks, it was a devastating knockout, very sad to see the man laid out on the canvas. His wife was concerned about him, and you thought that the Pacquiao train was done. Oh, and by the way, the big money fight against Floyd Mayweather, you thought that was done as well. In November of 2013, a unanimous decision versus action-packed fighter Brandon Rios. In April of 2014, righted the world with a unanimous decision over Timothy Bradley. November of 2014, a unanimous decision over Chris Algieri. In May of 2015, you can say 5 years in the making, 6 years in the making. A fight versus Floyd Money Mayweather. Now, folks, that negotiation for that fight dragged on for a long time. Now, people were talking about Manny Pacquiao against Floyd Mayweather really beginning with the Oscar De La Hoya fight. Again, Mayweather fought De La Hoya in 2007. Pacquiao fought him in 2008. Pacquiao beat him a little bit easier and quicker, even though, again, the circumstances were different. And I kept telling people, Floyd moved up in weight to fight Oscar De La Hoya. He moved up to De La Hoya's weight class because De La Hoya held the cards. He was the A fighter at that time. When Pacquiao fought De La Hoya moved down in weight at a weight that he hadn't fought probably in about 6 years. Circumstances a little bit different. The Ricky Hatton fight. He fought Ricky Hatton, and I'm talking about Mayweather when Hatton was undefeated. Floyd sliced him up, embarrassed him, had him run into the damn ring post with check hooks. Pacquiao destroys him in 2 rounds. Then you have when Pacquiao beats Miguel Cotto, again, which I thought was Pacquiao's most impressive victory, as well as victories against Antonio Margarito. So again, there was always that, let's get Pacquiao and Mayweather in the ring. These are the 2 best fighters. These are the fight that people want to see. And for some reason or another, whether it was money, whether it was drug testing, the fight could not be made. And I, and as well as you and the rest of the boxing world, were drugged through 5 to 6 years of negotiations that, sides were dug in, where you had the Pacquiao camp saying that Mayweather was ducking people. You had the Mayweather camp saying that Pacquiao didn't want to take the drug test. Could he be on something to start off as 108 pounds to tear through all the way up to the welterweight division? It could have been natural. It was just a whole bunch of politics. Then at that time, you had now Floyd Mayweather, who's fighting for Showtime. Pacquiao is still with HBO. Could these 2 cable companies coexist to produce this fight? And luckily we got it, May of 2015. And Pacquiao loses a unanimous decision to Floyd Mayweather, which I'm surprised people thought that was not going to be the end result. Now, people call it a boring fight, and people really criticize Mayweather for that. And I had an issue with that because Floyd Mayweather is a boxer, a good defensive boxer. He was mindful of Pacquiao's power. I don't believe Pacquiao had a hurt shoulder because I believe it was a 3rd and a 4th round. He catches Mayweather with a counter left hand over the top. Kind of a lead, but yet a counter at the same time, straight left hand lead. That you could tell he got Floyd's attention. I thought Floyd made the adjustments and he scored a unanimous decision over Manny Pacquiao. I don't know what people thought. I think people were hoping for Pacquiao to knock Mayweather out, and we're going to discuss some of the things about Mayweather, on another broadcast. But right now, this is about Manny Pacquiao. So a unanimous decision loss against Floyd Mayweather. In April of 2016, wins 2 out of 3 versus Timothy Bradley. Really should be 3 out of 3. Again, this is no knock on Timothy Bradley, but he won all 3 fights. In November of 2016, a unanimous decision over Jesse Vargas. July of 2017, a disgusting decision, and go back and watch famed trainer Teddy Atlas's reaction against Jeff Horn, which every now and again boxing does some dumb things. And for Pacquiao to lose that fight where he was whipping Jeff Horn's ass, I didn't understand that. And that's at the age of 38 years old, where Pacquiao clearly won that fight. He was given a bogus decision in the man's home country of Australia. In July of 2018, a TKO in the 7th round versus Lucas Matisse. In January of 2019, a unanimous decision over the goof, Adrian Broner. And in July of 2019, really should have been a unanimous decision, and I spoke about this before on a previous broadcast, a split decision victory over Keith One-Time Thurman. Now, let me put that into perspective for you. Keith One-Time Thurman was seen as the best of the young crop of welterweights. Again, this is after the retirement of Floyd Mayweather, the slow descent of Manny Pacquiao, as now he's an older fighter. So you had Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, you had Terrence Crawford coming up, and you had Errol Spence. I even throw in Kell Brook. Keith Thurman already had victories against Sean Porter as well as Danny Garcia. So Keith One-Time Thurman was seen as the best of those young fighters, and Pacquiao thoroughly embarrasses Keith Thurman. And I broke that down on a previous broadcast, and please go check it out. Where I crack up because Keith Thurman was telling people he was going to put Pacquiao in a retirement home. Well, a funny thing happened on the way there. Keith One-Time Thurman got destroyed in that fight and was pretty much beaten up. I mean, the fight really wasn't even that competitive. And folks, that's at the age of 40 years old. So I don't know what fountain of youth that Pacquiao has drank from, but again, this guy is still competing at a high level, beating the young champions. Oh, by the way, that fight was for the WBA super welterweight title. The welterweight title. So it does make you wonder what is so special about this guy, and everything is special about this man. Now, when you look at Pacquiao stylistically, if you go back and watch some of his earlier fights, he was pretty much a one-trick pony. Had a straight left hand. That's all he had. A straight left hand that was so quick, fighters couldn't see it. I mean, the left hand came down the middle, put his whole body into it, and it would land and it would hurt. But Pacquiao then began to evolve his game. Started developing his right hook. Wasn't really a jabber. Jabber really wasn't his thing. But he developed a right hook that was equally as devastating. But his money punch was that straight left hand down the middle. And folks, it was accurate, it was fast, and it was on target. And fighters could not see it coming. Pacquiao had tremendous upper body head movement, side to side. Think of a southpaw version of a Mike Tyson, that upper body. I'm not going to say from the peekaboo guard. I'm going to just say from moving the torso left and right from side to side to avoid punches, where that made Pacquiao a pretty good defensive fighter. I mean, he definitely avoided a lot of shots. I mentioned this before. Pacquiao had an excellent chin. I think one of the things that are underrated about Manny Pacquiao is really his chin. Yes, he has a knockout loss against Juan Manuel Marquez, but it took 4 fights for Marquez to figure it out. And we're talking barely knocked down against other heavy hitters who couldn't do anything with Pacquiao. And Pacquiao had this beautiful thing where in the fight, if he was hit by a punch, he would bang his gloves and basically motion to the fighter, to come on. Or he'll wave his arms in the air and tell the fighter to come on. So this man had a straight left hand that was accurate, it was deadly, it was fast, that fighters couldn't see. Had an excellent right hook. Beautiful upper body movement, kind of moving side to side. And me, I love footwork. Pacquiao had a beautiful thing where when he would land his straight left hand, of course, being a southpaw, and I'm a southpaw, his right foot is forward, his left foot is back. He would land a straight right hand and would slide over to his right. And by the time the fighter knows what happened, Pacquiao was already behind him. And that, I thought, was a beautiful thing with Pacquiao, was his speed and his foot movement. And this man had excellent balance, speed, and coordination along with his punching power. So this guy can virtually do it all inside the ring. I thoroughly enjoy watching Manny Pacquiao. He's probably the first guy on the top 10 list I can say I enjoy versus past tense enjoyed. So I enjoy watching Manny Pacquiao. I would still find him competitive against these young fighters nowadays. And there was nothing he couldn't do in the ring. I had the chance of meeting his trainer, Freddie Roach, when I was in LA. Very nice man. I thought Freddie Roach, the way he trained Pacquiao, it fit Pacquiao's style the best. Of course, the fighter gets the credit, the trainer gets the credit, but Pacquiao could do it all in the ring. Again, tremendous speed, threw bunches and punches. I think a thing that fighters always underestimated Pacquiao or knock on Pacquiao was that he was this wild guy swinging for the fences and really had no battle plan. He would just swing for the fences. That might have been true for the early portion of his career, but as his game and his skill set got to be more refined, he became actually an excellent boxer. You wouldn't say his jab was his best weapon, but it was serviceable. Again, lethal left hand could knock you down and out, whether it was straight, whether it was a hook. A good right hand that now threw his opponents off guard, because a lot of opponents started training for the left hand, and when he threw that right hook that was equally as hard, and the right hook that you couldn't see, it definitely knocked a lot of people out, knocked down a lot of people. Excellent upper body movement. I mean, just that side-to-side movement, ducking and slipping punches, as well of the footwork from hitting somebody and getting out of the way of their return. So folks, go back and watch these Manny Pacquiao fights. Hopefully with COVID-19 ending, maybe by next year when we have a vaccine, we can get back to boxing so we can enjoy maybe a few more fights again. The man is 41 years old. We can't be young forever. But during his time when this man tore his way up through these divisions in boxing, I give Manny Pacquiao all the credit in the world. So to Manny Pacquiao, thank you for the memories. Thank you for the memories that you gave us. I mean, too many. Enjoyed watching you fight. Still enjoy watching you fight. So wherever, whenever, and however you are listening to us. It is greatly appreciated. And this is Chin Check Radio. Until the next time.